Brody, did you get that gobbledygook? All right, sweet. First one that we're going to deal today with is the New Deal. This is in reference to the time period of the 1930s and 40s. Have any of you guys ever heard of the New Deal before? No. Sorta. Mason, my pedantic man in arms, which is actually a very good compliment. Don't worry, I'm a pedantic too. The New Deal is in response to the stock market crash of 1929 and the Great Depression that sprouted up pretty much the following day. During this Great Depression, excuse me, I have hair in my mouth. Pardon that, Mrs. Downing's class. The Great Depression, let's just talk quick about unemployment, just for a scope of how bad it is. After our Great Recession that we had in 2008 that you guys probably don't really remember, we actually had some pretty high unemployment. But compared to the Great Depression, it was a teardrop in the ocean, right? What do you guys think the unemployment rate was here during this time? Somebody raise your hand and take a guess. Mason.
About 50%?
Yeah, that's a little high, man. That's like catastrophic. Cole.
Like 1 out of every 4 people.
Yes, which is what percent? There you go, bud. So the unemployment rate.
C. Give me an up.
No. It was 25%. How do you think this affected families? Jody, what do you think?
Like their parents didn't work, so.
Here, at home, would it be happy or would it be really, really sad and depressed? Absolutely, man. All right. How else could it affect families? Riley.
In the event that like you obviously don't get money because you're not working, you could lose your house or lose things.
That's the big one I wanted everybody to realize. 1 in 4 Americans were out of a job. That meant 1 in 4 Americans lost their house, lost their car, lost their couch, lost their radio, every possession that they had to a large degree. Now, if you weren't one of the 1 in 4 Americans, what do you guys think happened to your salary though? Did it go up or was it reduced? It got severely reduced. So not only is there high unemployment, people have less money. So families would move in together, you know? People would move in with their folks, all of those kind of things. One of the crazy upshots of the Great Depression, Ryan, was that the adult males that had families left their families more than any other time in American history. They felt so bad from not having a job and that ideal that, you know, the man's supposed to provide for their family. Oh! That they couldn't meet that ideal, that they left. And they never came home. What that did then for the teenager was even a little more nuts, right? We actually had a problem of hobo teenagers in America. So bad that the government actually made a documentary called Riding the Rails, warning teens about leaving home. Saying, don't do it. You'll get sucked under the train and die. It was such a pervasive thing. We're talking millions of teenagers who ran away from home. And it's not necessarily running away from home. I want you to think of it as this. They decided to leave so that their mom only had one less mouth to feed. Okay? Another big part of the stock market crash, Great Depression, you guys have heard of the Dust Bowl? Okay, good. Let's just go ahead and get that down so you understand that significance. What areas of the country were affected by the Dust Bowl? Can somebody name a state? Lexi. Kansas. Jacob. Nebraska.
Iowa?
A little bit Iowa. There's a really big one. Oklahoma is the one that's very synonymous with it. Now, how bad was this dust storm? I'll put it to you this way, okay? You guys ever seen like The Mummy or The Mummy Returns? Where they've had those dust storms? That happened in America. This is how far dust could travel. There was a scientist who was coming from England over to America to study the dust storm and the erosion, all those things. And when he was on the ocean liner for it, he realized that along the deck, it was actually collecting dust. So it traveled as far as the mid-Atlantic Ocean. He actually took a vial of it when he got to the Midwest, and he compared it, and he realized the dust on his boat in the middle Atlantic was from Nebraska. That's how bad it was, okay? So this was like a climate change. Now, the New Deal, though, let's understand what this was. And this is where it's significant. This is why this is a pivot. Before the New Deal, we had a president named Herbert Hoover. Where's he from? He's from Iowa, okay? He said this. He thought Americans would pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. So he didn't want the government to intervene to help people. Okay? So this is no government intervention. By his last year, though, he changed his mind. Do you guys know any big famous thing that got constructed with his name to it?
Hoover Dam.
Yeah, exactly right, Devin. So even Hoover himself, he was like, I got to help people out. So he started to do public works. Now, who was the president during the New Deal? You guys know? All right, it's FDR. What's that stand for? Franklin Delano Roosevelt, right? Frankie, baby. All right. Roosevelt said this. He said that the government should provide direct relief. And this is the biggest, most important concept. This is why this is a pivot point in American history. We went from the government saying, no, we're not going to help you. In French, that is actually pronounced laissez-faire. The government is going to take their hands off. Roosevelt said, in severe catastrophes like this, the government has to directly help them. What's a good example of this in Charles City? Exactly, Lexi. All the stuff that the government, state, and federal have done for us, flood-wise, from our 2008 flood till now, like in our last flood, is a good example of direct help from the government. If you need money to rebuild, the government's like, here you go, right? Or is it a small loan? It's one or the other, right? But that is direct government relief. They don't say, you'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. It'll get done. So this is the big change. FDR says we're going to do direct relief. He did this using a system basically called, for lack of a better idea, the alphabet programs. I'm going to just put a couple up here, right? So C, 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 A, W, P, A, and it goes on and 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 on. All right? It goes forever. What these programs do, though, is they provide direct jobs and direct relief to the people. Add that. They provide direct jobs and direct relief. The CCC, this is for any adult male 18 to 25, and it gave them room and board, and then they went out and they rebuilt national parks and planted trees in America. If you guys go to a national park, there's a good chance that some of the stuff there was made by the CCC. What they did, hold that thought for 1 second. What they did was they allowed the 18 to 25-year-old to keep a small portion of their money, and then the rest they had to send home to their family, which then helped two groups of people. Okay? The AAA, this is the Agricultural Adjustment Administration. This program, we still have aspects of it in America today. All right? If a farmer has a severe catastrophe and destroys all of their crops in an area, the government can help out, right? That's what the Agricultural Adjustment Administration does. If we need to take some of our farmland and make it fallow for a year so that nothing's grown on it, that's the Agricultural Adjustment Administration. Do you guys know creek programs, the things that deal with water and stuff? Those things are direct offshoots of this Agricultural Administration. Okay? The last one, the WPA, this one here, I want you to, we had a brief intermission. The WPA, this one here created more jobs than any other thing. All right? They had tons of different stuff. If somebody needed a road built, they got a whole bunch of shovels and said, hey, we're going to pay you guys who are just sitting here to go build this road. If somebody was like a playwright on Broadway, they're like, don't have a job. We want you to start making a play. We'll get a producer, director. You guys get the cast. We'll hire the costume designer, the set builders, and we're going to put on a play. Just on and on and on. You're a writer. Hey, why don't you go and interview every remaining slave alive and then put it all into a book for us? They just kept making jobs and more jobs and more jobs for people. The WPA, this one actually had jobs for teenagers too. I thought that was a very clever thing. So the big difference for the New Deal, the pivot is that America went from the government doesn't intervene with people to the government intervenes with people. Here's one last kind of thing to think about. How many of you guys as grandparents are over 66? What do they get? They get Social Security, all right? That might be the last thing I want you to add. They get Social Security. One of the interesting aspects of the New Deal comes from this word. Almost all the ideals are socialism. Understand that. This is socialism. Okay? The government intervenes and makes stuff happen. Let me ask you this question. In America, what's our economy? Ben? No. In our economy, in America, we are a mixed economy. We are both socialist and capitalist. Capitalism is the government has nothing to do at all with the economy. In America, how much does the government impact and affect the economy? Tons, don't they? That's not capitalism. That is socialist. All right? Now, the degree that we do it pretty much has us about being a mixed economy. We're about 40% socialist and like 60-ish odd some percent capitalist. All right? But don't get it wrong. We are not a capitalist society. We're mixed. Every country in the world is, to a large degree. How are we on time? Pause it. Ready?
It's going.
Okay. All right. The last one I want for today is the atomic bomb. All right. You guys know the names of the bombs?
The Fat Man and the Little Boy.
Yeah, Fat Man and Little Boy. You gotta love them, dude. This bomb, huge, big, round bomb. This one is skinnier. They wanted to try out what's the best design. Okay? Where do we drop them?
Hiroshima, Nagasaki.
Yep. And I might misspell Nagasaki. I'm not sure. How many people did we kill? Go ahead. Where?
You wrote Nagasaki.
Yeah, where do you put the other one?
After this.
Oh, after, okay. Boom. There you go. Hey, I usually have a set of notes I look off of. Hey, how many people did we kill? Cancel that. How many people did we obliterate from existence like that?
220,000?
It's close to that, isn't it? Who's the president who did it? Nope, not Nixon. He would have, though. He would have loved that, man. Him and Dwight. They're like, yeah, drop it, drop it, drop it. Harry S. Truman. What year did this happen? 45. Okay? What did Truman have to deal with? 1945, we beat Hitler with a lot of help, and the Soviets beat Hitler, and we help out a little bit, okay? So Hitler's beat. We can now force all of our energy on the Pacific. We've lost over, with like non-battle related casualties, we've lost over 500,000 people, all right? Actually, I think it might be like 426. We're not at 500,000. And we say, what should we do? Truman is given several options. His first option is that we can invade the mainland of Japan. If we do that, he got told our estimates are about 2 million American casualties to take over that whole island. Would it have been less? Maybe. So let's cut it in half. He would have 1 million casualties. Second, we could wait them out, right? We could isolate them and just basically starve them out. Do a good old-fashioned medieval siege. That's a lot of their death. And then he was given his third option. The atomic bomb also goes by what other name? It's a project.
Project Manhattan.
Yep, the Manhattan Project. When he was vice president, Truman did not know about this. And so he got put forth this idea. His military advisors, to a large degree said, drop the atomic bomb. One, they wanted to know what happened. Okay? Two, they wanted to scare the Soviet Union. So let's add that. One, Truman and the military leaders wanted to see what an atomic bomb would do. But the second one is we wanted to say, hey, Joseph Stalin, who was the leader of the Soviets, we got this. Let's put it to you this way. When an atomic bomb goes off, and if you're standing by a wall, what happens to you?
Shadow casts on the wall.
It's not your shadow.
It's a light.
It's your atoms. When an atomic bomb blows up, if you're standing by a structure, you're deatomized. You're obliterated. And then your atoms are thrown into the shape of whatever your shadow would be. That's what it's there. My mom has been to the museum in Hiroshima. They got a hand that they recovered. It's in a glass bell jar. It's from like here over. To this day, there is a pile of black filings underneath it. What they come from is from the fingertips, from the fingernails, as it still keeps growing due to the radiation of it. That's what an atomic bomb does. It's grody, it's insane. If you ever read, I'll make you read them. If you read the accounts of this, it's horrifying. What this does, though, the pivot here, is we become the first nuclear power. We become the first which translates into the first modern superpower. To be a superpower, you must have nuclear power. You must have that nuclear weapon, all right? So realize, once we did this, we stepped onto that platform of being the first modern superpower in the world. Okay? Okay. This leads us onto the path of currently where it can be argued we might be waning. This is where we start being a world power that we are today. Right? This is the pivot for this. Cool. Any questions? Here's the last thing I want you to write down, and then I want you to think about it and write for 2 minutes. Was it ethical for America to drop the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Was it ethical for America to drop the atomic bomb? And you have your answer written down. Return to your
What's that spell?